republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We all bow our heads. Our Almighty Father in heaven, we ask that you watch over us and guide us tonight to make the decisions in the right order for those individuals that we represent here in Wells County. We ask you be with the first responders and military, those people out serving, especially in Southwest Florida with all the devastation that's occurred with Hurricane Ian. Be with those people that have been truly affected by it. Hopefully they can find comfort in you during this time as they go through the healing process. We say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, welcome to the Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 Wells County Council meeting. All council members are present, so we have a quorum. First thing on our agenda is the minutes from September 6th, September 12th, a special session on the 28th, and an executive session. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
If so, I make a motion, we accept the minutes.
We have a motion to accept.
I'll second.
And a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to transfers. A few here. We have a surveyor, council, and a plat book transfers. Everybody had a chance to look at those. Any questions or comments or further review? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the transfers.
So moved.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. And I think we just had one additional. Greg, did you want to speak to that?
If you want me to,
It's not necessary, but if you'd like to, tell us what's going on
Just
there.
to give you some information, we've done 627 tests as of June 30th. 63 THC findings, 9 methamphetamine findings, 7 cocaine, and 25 fentanyl. But half a year, we basically have already blown through all of our money, so we needed some additional to get us through the rest of the year. So
And those funds are grant.
those are coming
Related.
out of the probation users' fees.
Okay. Okay. We just needed a motion to approve the additional.
so moved.
We have a
I'll
motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Sheriff, you're up.
This afternoon, we have 87 total inmates in jail. 31 are pretrial superior, 30 are pretrial circuit, 16 F6, and 7 DOC. Numbers are still up, but I think I reported yesterday 92 or 93, something like that. So we got a few out of there over the last 24 hours. So doing good there. Also handed out the monthly activity and generated income for the past month on there. Nothing out of the ordinary. Generated income, I don't see anything out of the ordinary there as well. Unless there's any questions on those. Yesterday, I presented to the commissioners on a funding request. I handed you a sheet, it's got my name on the top of it. It's kind of a breakdown for about the last month or so, to give you a little back history here. At the very beginning of our project, they had designed the new addition on the jail to have a sprinkler system as their fire protection system on there. And when it went to the state for approval, they got a variance that didn't need to be sprinkled. So we got a credit of $125,000 back on the difference of what they were going to do on that. So for about the last month, there were some additional things that came up, just like most construction projects that we felt necessary, and we didn't, quite frankly, see in the very beginning of the project that we would have liked to have done. And there's 3 special projects that are listed there. One is a public lobby, new finishes. We turned one of our bathrooms into a video visitation. Everything up there, ceiling tile included, is just all original to the jail. And quite frankly, it looks pretty old. And I think with all the new things we're doing to the jail, to continue and put new tile in the lobby and all the finishes, paint, and things that go along with that, was one project. One that I list towards the top was which they list as a kitchen vestibule. The way our kitchen's designed, we have a delivery door in the back, and once you come in that door, it's no longer, that's the only secure door to the jail facility. One, it's small, and it's small enough you can't even get a pallet in it, and so typically when our stuff is delivered, we have to unload it from the pallet, bring it in interior-wise. So we wanted to enlarge that door to a 4-foot security door and then put an interior door, security door, and create more of a delivery foyer in the existing area to that area, which would allow deliveries to be made. And when we have inmate workers in the kitchen, it's not unsecure when deliveries are being made and those type of things. So that's the number 2. The number 3 is the corridor finishes. As we see the new portion of the jail, which looks pretty good, which ties into the old existing part of the jail, it's definitely night and day difference because the floor, the paint, everything else is original to the jail pretty much. So we had sought to get all the floors reground and sealed, all the doors and frames repainted throughout the main corridor to the jail, all the way to the jail pods, new ceiling tile and everything that goes in there because there's a drop ceiling in there. So that's the number 3 project. So the unfortunate part, which we just learned over the last week, was Amoresco learned that there was a life and safety issue when it come to fire dampers. The ones that, not only are the ones that they were putting in the new section are not code, those need replaced, and also the existing fire dampers within the jail facility are not up to code. The only difference is to get occupancy into the new part of the jail, it has to be replaced. And so Amoresco is replacing those at their cost to get that done. Current jail, they're not having occupancy, but Amoresco is offering to do the work for us since they're already mobilized on site to be able to do that work. If we choose to go with somebody else or do something else, then we would have to sign a liability waiver stating that they told us we did not want their work to be done and so forth. So Commissioner Stringer and I had a meeting with Amoresco Monday morning to kind of go over those details. We feel that this is a life and safety issue. We'd rather get it done now. It has pushed our project back a little bit because, as we learned, these fire dampers on regular manufacture are going to take anywhere from 13 to 19 weeks for delivery. We were within a couple weeks of opening our new intake area. So they, with expedited costs and everything else, to be able to get those in the next 3 to 4 weeks, the total cost on our end is $170,000. So Commissioner Stringer and I, after we met with Amoresco, we met with the auditor. So if you look through that breakdown, there was that $125,000 credit. We find it important and necessary for the projects to continue that we put time and effort, quotes, and everything else into. And then also the life and safety issue. We feel there's enough money in public safety and lit, well beyond what we would need I would submit an appropriation by the 12th of this month so that you guys would see an appropriation for next month. What I asked the commissioners yesterday was to get a verbal vote that we could move forward with the project. The price is not to exceed. It could be cheaper. They're still working with Corson, which is the fire people, because there was some new equipment that we can't use but does have some of the elements in them that we could maybe reuse into the new parts. That may drop that cost down a little bit. So, so I asked commissioners yesterday for verbal confirmation to move forward with those projects so that things can get ordered, and it seems like that's the biggest issue right now is lead time on other things. Fire dampers aren't the only issue. We're still waiting on toilet sink combos for ourselves for the new portion. Those seem to be sitting in the ocean somewhere, I don't know, on a ship, but hopefully we get those soon. But we're really close to getting open, but I don't want to wait a whole nother month until the appropriation is approved, the funds are there, and I'm just asking for the council to consider doing these 3 special projects in the life and safety issue instead of, I don't want to sign or have anybody, as far as the commissioners, sign a liability waiver to put this out to a later date. So I think it's something that needs addressed now. They're mobilized. It would cost them even way more to remobilize next year if we didn't expedite these things, so,
So I have a question.
yeah.
On the kitchen vestibule, was that not foreseen going into this project, that you wanted to get pallets in there in a secure
Well, I
location?
think one of the things too is right inside the kitchen door, what really made us think about it is there's one of the huge air handlers, which they still have to replace yet, is directly inside our delivery doors. And it's just a regular size man door. And so they originally come to us and said, we were talking a project with them about enlarging that door size because they have to piece out the existing air handler that's in there, and they have to take the new one apart in pieces and get it in there and put it all back together. And so we had talked to them originally about doing that, and then in that process, that's when the conversation started, because we were like, boy, it would be really nice to be able to enlarge this other door. If they're gonna do if they're gonna enlarge that door on the other side, then why don't we go ahead and do that? And that has always been an issue for us, to only have one security door. Because typically an inmate working in the kitchen, we put them in the kitchen with the contracted kitchen services, and then they're closed in the kitchen. And so, they're monitored on cameras, but we're not sitting there guarding them 24/7. If the delivery's made or somebody comes to the back door, we always have to get somebody to come back there, and those type of things. So this would create that foyer, but yeah, it's unfortunate. Some of these things, when you get into the construction
I mean, I
project.
understand it,
Yeah.
it sounds like something that could have been foreseen if you were
Yeah,
talking
I wish
about that.
this would have
be handy,
probably
yeah.
got put into the original project. It wasn't on our radar at the time, and I think as we've moved along in this project, it was, when we thought we had this credit and not had to worry about these fire dampers, it was a good fit for us to say, yeah, wasn't it necessarily, dire necessity in that sense, but we were like, hey, if we're going to get this credit for this, there is probably some things we should probably do, so.
So what do we
I
need?
know you don't have I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I know you don't have a crystal ball. Do you think this is the end of do you think there will be more requests like this?
I don't. We're really close, like I said, as far as they're starting. Once these things get in place and they get their inspections done, our new portion is open. There's going to be some additional expenses for, like, when our conference room's done. Just so you're aware, we've used commissary money to purchase all the furniture, all the installs for the working with stylists to get the stuff we need in there to make that a training and conference room. So we're using commissary funds. That's not anything I'm going to come to you for and ask. So there's stuff we bought all the furniture for the video courtrooms, for the chapel and training rooms. We bought all that outside of this stuff. We've been trying to utilize those funds and the generated commissary funds to buy things like that are related to the jail. So I don't foresee anything. They're starting the parking lot hopefully on the 17th of October. The east parking lot will about a week to 2 weeks. They're telling us on that. And once the parking lot's done, the only biggest thing left to do is our training and conference room, and that's a brick wall and some interior finishes, so, which is all part of the scope of the project. I don't see any changes in there, so.
Do you have any idea what the expenditure for Amoresco is going to be for labor for redoing this?
They did give me, I didn't bring it with me, they did give me a breakout. I think they're wishing they didn't give us the $125,000 credit in the beginning. Because now they also purchased and then now are replacing. But I know that they have spent contingency funds total, which they presented to me this week, in the upwards of $400 and some thousand, which there was only, I believe, $275,000 built in for contingencies on their end. So they understand that, as far as the new portion, that's their issue and the designer's issue. And so they're fully up to speed on paying their part in doing that, so. But if you want to break out, I mean, I can give that to you, I know, it's three figures, it's probably upwards of $100,000 mistake for them on their part that they have to pay.
But in this 170, they got labor more.
Yes, that's us hiring,
That's total
Yep.
install for that, for our part. that we're
yes,
part
that's
of.
everything, yep, dampers, install, expedited fee,
For the other part.
yep. And that will get everything in the entire jail. The new portion is only, I mean, if you picture it, probably a third of what needs to be done, because the existing jail, these return dampers and stuff, there's about 75 total of them in the entire jail, so, yeah.
And kind of the same thing there, Sheriff, that Steve asked, was that not picked up in the original for some odd reason? Did they not look at the existing and say that this life safety issue cost was going
Yeah.
to be? Because that seems like a miss as well somewhere.
Yeah, I've had to try to get them to, obviously, I'm not an expert at
Oh, sure,
that, but
yeah.
they,
It's like they found their mistake.
for one, we're in an,
But over here,
yeah.
by the way, we got this over here we want you to do too.
For one,
This is a
we're,
little weird.
it is. One, we're an anomaly. Most buildings like that are done with sprinkle systems. So, this fire system is more of a containment fire system. They're working on dampers. And what, what they were under the assumption of is that they were smoke dampers. And in all reality, the code is they have to be fire and smoke. And then they work off relays, which sometimes, differentiate the difference between the smoke and the fire dampers and the internal makings of how those work. And then the automatics of if they do shut, because let's just say you do have smoke in the building, those dampers shut, then the auto part of it is that they reopen. There's some fuse link in there and how that works as far as temperature and how that linkage will melt in the event of a fire, and it closes those dampers down. So, yeah, they fully admit that between the design team and them, on their part, they didn't understand, because they weren't, their scope wasn't fire dampers within the main part of the facility, so. But as they got in, once they realized on their part, then they investigated on the existing part of the jail as well and realized that those aren't to code either, so.
Okay.
Which is the unfortunate part of a 36-year-old jail, so.
Be a pretty nice facility once you get everything finished, though.
Yeah, if you haven't been out there, you guys are welcome to come out. The new intake area is looking very nice. It's all coming together, and they're starting to get things cleaned up. The grids, the ceiling grids are just all the grids. They got to leave all the panels out right now, because once they are complete and they have the fire inspector and all their inspections done, they have to be able to access all of what's up in the ceilings and new. So the fire inspectors asked for that to all be done, but that would just be a short job. Once they get all their approvals, they'll be able to put that in. One of the other last things is a large garage door for our Sallyport is being manufactured right now. So as soon as that's done, that's getting delivered and will be installed, so. And I know Connor's wanting a bunch of his storage containers back with the county highway project, and we got a lot of stuff sitting in storage containers out in the yard, so. Once we get that garage door in, we can, if we are delayed because of fire dampers, we can start to utilize that area for storage. We had built in a huge storage area back where the video courtrooms are, and that actually is almost complete. And then hopefully here in the next week, we can start getting that back so we can start getting our storage out of there. Also, with that being said, we did have our state jail inspection the other week on the 22nd of September, even in the middle of construction and everything else, which was not fun, but we actually had a lot of the construction crews not working that day in the mid-morning until after lunch, so that it was just a little more peaceful around there, and no issues. So you'll be getting a report in the future. He's liking what he sees. He'll have to come out back again once we reopen for occupancy. He has to come out and give his stamp of approval on it as well, but it was his first time of seeing everything. He was impressed with the changes we've made and everything we've done, and Karen Thompson, jail commander, does an excellent job preparing for that every year. He always seems a sigh of relief when he comes to our facility, because everything is put together well and organized as far as documentation and those type of things. So no different than in any of the other years. So I was very proud of my staff and her and preparing for that even during all this stressful time, so.
They didn't tell you needed 10 more jailers or anything like that?
Well, they're not the ones that told us that in the beginning, but yeah, they definitely, I know you won't like to hear that, but I think this jail will be useful long after me, for sure, but, you know, whether it's you or a future council member in the future, that jail's gonna need beds at some point, but the good thing is, it won't be as chaotic as it was through this, because that'll be like building a new section of the jail to add another pod on down the road, and, you know, then you can move into it when it's done. This one's just been, you know, right on top of us, pretty much all summer, so.
Okay.
So again, public lit, safety money, I think it's a very good investment. That's what it's there for. It's what it's generated for. I just ask for your verbal approval or vote to move forward with these projects.
Set up for a motion or a vote? If somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
And your motion is?
Oh, 170,000 out of lid for
Okay.
the additional.
Just want to clarify.
Well, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, just to be clear, that was 140. I will need the 147, 764 at the very bottom.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approve that.
Thank you. I
right,
hate
thank
to be
you.
the one to always come and ask for money, but it will be well put to use. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thanks, Sheriff.
Good luck.
The way to pay for it.
All right, next up, we have the 2023 budget adoption. And there's, I believe, 3 here. First is Wells County. Our 2023 budget is $21,494,644. Then for the solid waste is $237,329. Buck Creek Conservancy is $85,300. So this is our formal budget approval, adoption, and I just need a motion for those numbers.
One question, just to make sure all the numbers did work out the way we were looking for when we left everything. I haven't heard anything different. So. Yeah, whatever our balance was on the, okay. Just confirming that nothing had changed versus.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the 2023 budget adoption for Wells County Solid Waste and Rock Creek Conservancy.
Motion, do I hear a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Connor, you're up.
Thanks for having me.
You're getting dressed up.
Sorry about that. I just got done with my workout. So just want to let you guys know that things are moving along. I'm not sure if anyone's made it out past the site, but we do have the building pad built up for the cold storage building. The stone is on that. Grade pins are in, so we're ready to rock and roll on rebar and concrete. Right now, I'm just waiting on submittals to be returned. We ask for those to be expedited. I expect to have them tonight yet. And so then we have a week or two of fabrication to get that out on site. So really, realistically, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we should be putting concrete in the ground for the cold storage building. The salt storage building should also have its concrete being done at about the same time. The building pad for the main building appears to be complete as of today. I expect to see some stone on it here in the next couple of weeks. We've mobilized our trailer out there. We've done the base layer of asphalt paving for the parking lot. And really, that'll just be for construction workers to park their vehicles on during the winter. It'll allow us to keep the site a little bit cleaner, a little bit more organized as we move through this process. We're excited that everything's moving forward, and so far, so good. One of the things, I have been coached a little bit. I was asking earlier if this is a meeting that we're going to continue having. And we've decided that, yes, we'd like to keep you guys in the loop, and so I'll continue to appear monthly to council, just to keep you guys fully in the loop of everything that's going on in the project. But I am going to stop attending the commissioner meetings, and we're going to handle the construction progress every 2 weeks, and they're invited to attend that. So we'll still be having the same level of communication, but that way I don't have to have commissioners and council and owners and subcontractor meetings, because I'd basically be having the same or very similar meeting 4 separate times, so.
Let me save you some time. I don't think you need to be here every month.
Okay.
So let's make our next update December,
Okay,
and then new council will decide if we want to do that every other month, or
great, yeah,
after the first year, we'll make another decision.
that works.
And let you know, I think a good pattern might be every other month. I don't know
seems
that we have to
reasonable.
have you here every
In
month.
the winter, you know, it's
Yeah, I mean, we know, we'll get a good enough update.
Yeah, and I mean,
Something extraordinary that we need to be aware of.
Anyone can reach out to me at any time if they'd like to come out on site. Obviously, this is very visible, and there are a lot of people interested in it. If you are going to be on site, I just ask that you contact us first so that we can
Get you a hard hat.
get you a hard hat. Exactly. And wear your boots, because it's going to be muddy.
Just curious, is the building, is it coming along? I mean, as far as it's not on site, right?
No, not yet.
You mentioned it was.
I expect the cold storage building to hit the site in the middle of November. I haven't heard anything to tell me that that's not going to happen, and the main building will be there in December. And so, in an ideal world, the concrete is done, and we're ready to start putting steel up as soon as those things arrive.
Thank you. Thanks for the update.
Yep.
Blake, you're up.
How's everyone doing this evening?
Good.
I'm going to ask Colin to join in on this conversation. We've been talking about this since July. I've talked to you all individually about taking the part-time training DOC compliance position to a contract. The reason being is Tina has, for PhD loans in her field of expertise, which is in law enforcement, and for us, for community corrections, she needs to do 32 hours a week for her federal loan forbearance part of it. And with the Obama administration 32-hour cap or 32-hour benchmark, that kind of throws us into an issue. So, you know, this is just following through. Colin and I have been working the whole time on trying to get the language where Colin felt it was appropriate and it fit what he needed from the legalities of things. So at this point, I'll just hand it to Colin to explain, because I'm not an attorney.
So, the question that was brought to me, and my sole interest in this is, from the legal standpoint, was whether or not this employee could be determined to be an independent contractor and exempt from FLSA standards. So, the IRS is not clear and never has been about what an employee is. If you have an employee, I know a lot of you have dealt with this in your lives, and HR issues abound, but if you have an employee, then there's mandatory with, Social Security, payroll taxes, that sort of thing happens. So independent contractors are exceptions to the general rule that there's different issues with how employees need to be handled, and employees have certain rights, and employers have certain obligations with regard to those employees. Independent contractors are quite different in that, an independent contractor is, you are a business and you hire,
you build houses and you need a roofer, you don't do roofing in-house, you're a general, and so you sub it out to a roofer, and then you just say, hey, here's a job, you go do it, here's what we're going to pay you. And usually that roofer has his own tools, his own training, and also there's some liability of sorts on the independent contractor in that if the job doesn't get done, then that independent contractor doesn't get paid, whereas your employee is going to get paid no matter what. You can fire them if you want later on if they do a bad job. But so this is a little, this is kind of a, in my mind, it's a closer call than the roofer versus your standard W-2 employee, a person who works at the courthouse and the clerical, let's say. So the job description that Blake had brought to me was fair. It was well done. It was big. There's a lot into it, and one of the concerns that I have had at the time was that it seemed as though Tina's job description put her almost in a supervisory role. Well, anytime you have the ability to control and direct employees in a company, you're an employee. And since the IRS doesn't give us an idea of what an employee is, it's not defined strictly enough for us to work off that. They do give us, there's a 20-factor test that the IRS, basically, they look at these things. There's also an economic activity test that we can look at. I've printed it all off. I've read through it. I don't want to go through all of this IRS regulations with you tonight. I'm happy to do so, but we're going to be here pretty late. So in the 20-factor test, you look at those things that I just discussed. Do they have skin in the game? Does the independent contractor potentially suffer a loss in this? Do they have independent training? Are they responsible for their own tools? Are they under the control of someone else? These are all factors that roll in. And there's no way right now that I can tell any of you that the IRS in an audit wouldn't say that this person is a W-2 or a 1099 employee. It doesn't matter what we call it. It's the reality. And it's not even in the job description. It's also how Blake handles her. You know, if Blake starts bringing her more under his control and an audit were to happen, well, the county could be in some trouble, at least paying some of those taxes it should have been paying before. And also the employee that was called a 1099 would also have an action against the county potentially for withholding issues as well. So there is a way for the county to request that the IRS issue an opinion on this. There's a form, it's an SS-8 form. I've never done that before. I don't know how long that would take. My understanding is that the funding for this is already been budgeted. Is that correct? And so we've already submitted to DOC. They've okayed the funding, and we did it through budgets.
So just some of the concerns that I had was, the first concern is there's an hourly rate applied to this, and it's not project-based, at least in this description. There's a certain, up to a certain amount of hours per week are allotted. But I talked to Blake earlier, and Blake assured me that Tina is basically going to get projects directly from Blake, and then she'll go off and she'll run with it, subject to that cap of 32 hours. She won't be able to do any more than 32 hours. And so if that's the case, and she's not exercising any supervision over anyone else, she's pretty much on her own, it would be preferable to have those projects have separate costs to them, to the county, separate prices. So, hey, you need to do this grant writing. So the market for that's $5,000. We need you to do that. But this person is in the office right now, is already integral to the office workings, and that would administratively be a pretty heavy burden on Blake, because I think she's going to be doing a lot of work. So in that vein, it is closer to the line than I would like, because but this is also a unique situation where we have somebody who's already in the office is essentially transitioning out into a more independent role. So I can't tell you heads or tails about whether or not an IRS audit would reveal this or that. I think that if the council were to allow this, Blake just needs to remember that the more control you exercise over her, the more we're getting away from this project, and it puts the county in some risk. Now, that's not necessarily a concern for the council. That's you have an executive director here who answers to his own board.
The board should be aware of that as well. And I think at least when we start out, we should probably keep an eye on that. I'm not terribly familiar with the inner workings of community corrections, so I can't speak more than that. There's some concern there. We've essentially, we work together to make this as independent as possible from what the limited understanding that I have about what Blake's needs are. And so it'll be up to the council to decide at this point whether they go that route, understanding what I'm saying. I don't know what else to take out of here other than making this a price per project sort of arrangement. But the problem with price per project arrangements is that the interest in getting her 32 hours a week, if you're hiring somebody to do a project, I don't think you really care how much time it takes. You're hiring to do a project. So I don't know how we...
Just a quick question, Blake, is she's a W-2 employee now, right?
Right.
So is her job materially changing enough to where the IRS wouldn't come back and say, now, wait a minute, as W-2, she was doing all these things. Now over here, she's still doing all those. You made her 1099 so you wouldn't have to pay benefits for her. That's going to be a big problem. So is her job materially changing enough that it's not nearly what she was doing before?
I'm going to let her work independently on the data collection.
But she's still doing the same work. That's what I'm saying.
No, she's
So her job will not be doing the same work she was
downshifting.
doing
She's
before.
downshifting from what she's currently doing.
And also, is she in the office? Is she going to be doing this from home?
She's going to have 7.5 hours of training a week she has to do with staff
So she
for our
won't be
DOC
in
compliance,
the actual office quite often then, right?
just once a week for the training sessions,
Okay.
which is we've got
A
a,
little mix, I didn't know if it was
yeah,
at home or
she's
gonna
also
be
an
where-
instructor for our carry guides and bids.
Physically where she's going to be.
So she has to come in and train, and then we've also tied in drug recognition updates, stuff like that with our, to tie into the carry guides. So she has a training module that's her expertise. I'm not certified. No one else
She'll make
is.
her own times, would you, again,
Yeah.
back to that control, if you start
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
somebody
the-
what time you're going to be there.
No, just on that one day a week she's doing the training, because I have to, for staff coordination, be able to make sure we don't have intakes scheduled during the training sessions and have everything covered. Basically what I did is I took, Jefferson County Community Corrections had a similar situation, and they had a salary per hour with a max. And I went off of the contract that I got from them as the format for this. So, I mean,
If you have a Department of Labor audit, would this be an issue?
This is one of the reasons they audit. is
Yeah,
to-
absolutely. So that is a concern. Is our concern, why does she have to have 32 hours? If she was under 30 hours, you don't have to do any benefits.
for her student loans.
She has to have 32 hours?
That's part of that stupid student loan stuff that, yeah.
So why are we worried about making her a W-2 again for 32 hours a week? I know we'd have paid health insurance and cover her with other benefits. Is that?
In the
Social
handbook.
Security and matching. and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
In the
I get
handbook,
that.
it says part-time employees can only work up to 28 hours.
So she'd have to
Work
be
less
28 or
hours.
40 is what you're saying.
No, she would like to work the 32.
She has to be one or the
I know,
other.
but what's
She's
she
not
working
the-
now,
she has to-
40?
Okay.
No, she's going doing the 28.
She wants to go to the 32.
Right.
To do that, she's gonna
Qualify for loan forgiveness.
this.
And she's wanting to gear down. She doesn't want to do the supervisory part of it. And she's trying to transition into, in the next couple of years, retiring out.
I mean, I'm kind of feeling like we're putting ourselves in a big pickle,
Potentially.
you know?
How they, again, the IRS determines it, however they look at it.
It seems like a slippery slope to me. I would not be in favor of this.
And we're doing this to.
If this happens, I'm gonna be left with a hole in my staff. I'll lose her. And,
We should go to get her 32 hours of her other.
well, I don't know, but I may lose her, and I've got 14 years invested. She has a PhD in this area, which I'm one of the few in the state that have a PhD on staff, which is nice.
What county did you say?
Jefferson County, you want to see this, Seth?
Con, have you had a chance to talk to the Jefferson County attorney to see if,
I did not talk to them and see if there had been any audits or any,
or just to see
any,
if they were obviously comfortable with doing this?
well, if
They
that's,
did
if they did it, I don't, I didn't think about it until you just mentioned it, but I did not ask them if they filed an
There was-
SSA to see
Right,
if
see if there's some rationale that they had that made them comfortable in signing off on it.
there is some risk in pursuing an SS8 because if you get an unfavorable ruling, it can cause some rapid changes. So people generally, and in fact, some of the guides that I've read on this, they encourage you not to unless it's kind of a really big deal. But I did read through that, and Blake's contract that he put together is much lighter than the Jefferson County one. A significant portion of that was taken out. It sounds like it's a similar job that's down there. We just work together to try and take it down as much as we can, but still be a
Make it
true
independent.
job description that's accurate as to what the expectations are of this person.
So making this change qualifies her for the $10,000 loan forgiveness?
It's more than that. It's for teachers, if they do 6 years in a, Vicki, help me, was it a certain rated school? After so many years, you get the balance of the loan forgiveness.
And believe it or not, Scott, doctors at Parkview, because this is not, quote, not-for-profit, they get debt loan forgiveness for their student loans after so many
Yeah.
years. Or if you're at Lutheran and they're for-profit, you don't. I mean, it's a messed up system is really what it is.
Yeah, it's
I was curious, though, in that
It's more than 10,000.
she isn't meeting that requirement now, right?
Yeah.
So
if
she's been supplementing it with some outreach work with offenders through churches.
Well, I'm just wanting to make sure that,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that she'll qualify.
Yes.
If we do something unnatural to try to, would she still qualify? Because she
No,
just doesn't meet that.
yeah, she's already checked that out. And
How
I've
many more
been
years does she need, Blake, of this?
about 2.
Now, would she be billing the county for this work she's doing?
Like I said, I went off of what Jefferson County did.
She'd have to build the county.
If you're doing a private contractor, you have to.
Billing, then
You have
she's
to bill it.
responsible for her own
Right. She'll give me what she worked that
billing and everything.
that
so
week.
it's a whole nother
It
And
would be, it would be on a claim,
right.
and it would have to be, for every 2 weeks on claim cycle.
would be delays and whatever the whole
I'm just
process.
really concerned about a labor audit
Self-employment
because
insurance
we've
should
had
have
one
to be
in the county before, and it was not favorable. They went back to people's information, and it cost the county quite a bit of money. But that's been years ago. I don't know whether they even do that much anymore, but I know in my previous job, they drilled, independent contractors and employees, know which they are, and make sure that you're doing that correctly.
And that's why Colin and I were working on getting the job description to be for independent contractor for stated bullet points of data collection, DOC compliance reports, and are we conforming, stuff like that.
I think the issue is, are we just doing it to make things easier for the employee? And the answer is yes. How is the federal government going to look at that? The IRS or the labor board?
Liability involved with all that.
Well,
I just don't see where.
How about let me throw this out? The 4 hours a week would be nice to have to work around. Can I get permission to let her do the remote work with 7.5 hours in the office? Currently, there's a thing stating that that's only emergency use only. I'm trying to think of something to bridge her needs and the department needs.
So what's the, It's not employees, it's 1099 employees, so she can do whatever she wants. We don't have to do anything on that end. That's not us.
No, that wouldn't be us.
It's up to you and managing her.
But I mean,
she's
if we
not
don't
employed
do,
with the
if we
county,
don't
so-
do the contract employee,
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if we kept her as a W-2?
And I talked to Blake about this, and the reason that that I understand she needs to work from home is she has an ill spouse that she's taking care of. Is that what's happening here?
without going into any further in a
Right.
public setting.
That would be
How many hours would that be total? What she's working now?
28, we'd go back to up to 28, 7.5, 1 day in the office doing the training.
So would that have to go through the commissioners for someone to work at home remote?
It should be back as a,
I mean, if I could have something from the council saying that you're okay with it, because I don't want to get into, the commissioner go ask council, then I have to come back, and then we're back and forth, back and forth. I'm willing to do anything for a resolution.
Commissioners have said that if he maybe redid the job description for you guys, saying that putting in the job description, she didn't want to work remotely. Is in the job description, if you guys would approve that, then
So if we approve the job description, then the commissioners would okay the remote work?
yes.
And keep it down to 28 hours.
And she'd get her 4 like she is now from other areas. I'd be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
could live with
afraid
that.
of the other
Yeah, I
issues
don't
that
like
you'd
the
run
other,
into.
But I think keeping it that way with that job description, if the commissioners are already okay with that, I could live with that scenario.
And then we could stick with the current DOC stated job description we have for that position.
Right.
So I don't have to amend the grant and file updated.
Would she still be under, as an independent contractor?
No, she'd be as she is now,
She's back to 28 hours.
and be back to 28 hours.
but she would be remotely.
Right.
7 hours.
Under an
7.5 hours in
exception,
the office.
exception type thing, a family member, whatever.
Yeah.
whatever the situation is.
I'd rather have that.
I would.
Independent
yeah, I would.
contractor.
I think that's.
Sounds like this
I've dealt with
council's
too many
kind of worried
those.
about getting in an audit, and
No, and
I
that's
think
why,
there's
that's why I've been
the
working.
likelihood of audits are probably going to go up
No.
because of the
Yeah, the
IRS
situation.
Yeah, there's only 86,000 more that's going to be out there.
I'm trying to figure out where they're gonna find them all in this economy, or this market, but,
Issue, but
but no, and that's why I've been talking with y'all since about June about this, what's the best tack to take, and what we can do to come to a resolution that works for the department.
What does council think of
Well, if it's part-time and, already under the auspices of the W-2, then we're not worried about a labor audit at that point. And I'm sure Blake's willing to do this, just it's gonna put a little bit more, work that, Blake's gonna have to do a little bit more work because, there are regulations that we have in the county handbook about monitoring and keeping track of things, and so Blake's gonna.
I
to
do
implement
have
this.
a form in place that I developed the end of last year that has a list of our routine annual projects, our quarterly projects, and stuff like that, where she would submit how many hours in the start time and end time and date, and the hours per project on any remote working. Yeah.
I'm much more comfortable with that than dealing with the 1099.
So I do have my previous system I built that I can use without having to recreate anything.
And this might be a good question for Lisa. So currently, in our handbook, remote working is generally prohibited. But what you've said is that if the council gives approval for a job description that it essentially requires at-home work or allows for at-home work, then that would be an acceptable exception to the prohibition in the handbook without the commissioners having to act and having to amend the handbook. Is that your understanding?
That's what they suggested when this first came up, that he comes to council and does a different job description with remote work included in that job description.
An additional step that we, after working with Mike Vanover on this with commissioners, we have her, when she comes in the office and she's working after hours, trying to accommodate her needs at home. She emails Deb Snyder, my administrative assistant, and myself, when she comes in and starts, and when she leaves, she left, and when she comes back in, she goes out for dinner and comes back, she does that. And we keep all that, all those emails, and use that as a secondary validation of the jobs list. We haven't been using the jobs list because we were using the email and we were waiting to see how we went with all this. So I now have the projects list that I can implement as well.
Again, it'd be your responsibility.
Yeah, that's up to you.
That's up to you to
Yeah.
keep track and make sure it's all.
Yeah. But I have built redundancies in for tracking this process, just in case, God forbid, we have another epidemic or something, and I've got people working staggered from home, as we all went through with COVID. I'm not going to say it can't happen again, because we all didn't think it was going to happen this time, but who knows what's out there next.
Well, it sounds like everybody's on somewhat the same page here, and just move forward with that thought.
That's great. Lisa, can you get me on the commissioners' next agenda? Do I need to go to the commissioners on this, or we can?
Well, I think that he needs to at least draft the job descriptions, including give it to the commissioners.
Right, I can take the current job description, and I've got a
Okay. So you're saying we need a motion to approve, allowing for the job description change for this particular employee that's part-time
Or
to
just.
be able to work remotely, all but 7 hours a week in the office.
7.5 hour,
7.5 hours
or
a week in the office.
7 hours a week, let's do a round number.
Is that what you're saying, Lisa, that we need to do?
Or just wait till he brings the job description back.
Let's do that.
Yeah,
Do the job description, bring it back, and then we'll.
Approve that.
so I'll put you on next month's
Yeah,
agenda.
that'd be good.
I'm gonna get beat up by Ms. Williams because I'm kicking out another month, but I'll have that out.
It's
I'll have that out to you tomorrow morning by email to each council.
It's just a difficult situation, and we don't want anybody to have to suffer for it. We definitely don't want the
Oh, yeah.
county to end
Well,
up with
and-
a
And if
lawsuit.
this works, at least it works for her in the end, which is what matters.
Ties for her
Someone
situation,
giving me
too.
multiple directions, and we were trying to narrow them down, so,
It
you
just
know.
had to be this discussion,
Yeah,
so sorry
we just
about
had to
that.
have a good discussion. I didn't want to do it during budgets.
Seth, would there be a difference in cost to the county? Is there gonna be a 25% pay increase?
No.
To the individual?
No,
But we're taking, we're
the
increasing the
W-2 would be
hours.
the same, but before we were taking her off benefits.
We were just taking benefits out.
But we were adding 4 more hours, so it probably might have been a wash.
Probably not.
We put that over on the offender user fee side, the project income side. That was not a hit to the
Oh, that was
county.
So that wasn't to the county, okay. It was out of the other sources. Okay.
She's still going to end up with getting, just as an employee. So she doesn't have benefits
Right, so it's not
anyways.
going to change. All I'm going to need to do is to her current job description, add the 7 hours a week in office, and then the other 21 hours a week will be allowed to do remote working.
And maybe it's late, you know, and maybe it's me, but wouldn't she then be a full-time employee?
No, 32 hours is where we get in trouble.
Right.
The handbook says we cap it at 28, so there's a 4-hour buffer.
But then how are you getting to 32 for the feds? Don't you need?
Well,
32
she
for the
can
local
supplement
community?
that through her other stuff she was doing outside of the job for outreach, for life coaching outreach for offenders.
But that's for you, right?
No, she has created her own foundation doing life coaching with the.
But why are we even talking about it then if it's already covered? If she's already got those 32 hours?
It has to be changed.
Working.
The job
description.
description.
You can't work. The remote working situation.
I was
special
given
needs
multiple
for-
directions to go, and I was trying to get to this point.
Handbook says they're not allowed to work.
They're not allowed.
Yeah.
All right, I think you got directions, so let's
Yes,
move
and
on.
we'll do that, and I'll email that out tomorrow to you.
Appreciate that. Okay, thanks, Blake.
Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
If you want me to see that before you
All
send it
right,
out.
moving on.
Working from home.
The interlocal agreement for the Emergency Communications Department, I think, has been approved.
That's the problem.
Can we all listen up? Has been approved by the commissioners, and I believe city council now. I think we are the last body to approve this, and I believe Seth had gotten this to everybody a month or so ago now.
Right after, a week after our last meeting, and Commissioner Vanover wasn't able to be here, but he had sent me just a quick thing to go over with everybody in case you have any questions for it, but it basically said that all the interested parties approached him with concerns about 911 Emergency Dispatch Center. Specifically, they felt that it could have a better framework and transparency across agencies. If you may or may not remember, Bluffton had a dispatch center, and so did the sheriff's office at the time. Over the course of the last several months, many city and county officials engaged in discussions aimed at addressing the concerns and promoting a better working relationship oversight of the county 911 Emergency Dispatch Center. At the very core of the interlocal agreement is a pledge to make the very best 911 Emergency Dispatch Center for every citizen, visitor in Wells County. Foster teamwork among the various communities, elected officials, and other essential emergency workers, and wholeheartedly believe that this agreement will achieve those goals and also provide a positive fiscal impact with cost savings and a much more succinct plan going forward. He also goes on to want to thank everybody that was involved in it. The mayor, I was a little bit involved, Colin was, and then the city attorney, Tony Kraut. This took over a year to put together. This was not an easy agreement to get. You think, oh, city, county, we can all get along and get this done. A lot went into getting it to where it is today. Basically, the big thing that falls onto this committee, and I know Sheriff's been a part of this from the beginning as well, is that the 911 committee that's established, county council will have one representative. For this year, Steve had asked that I would do it, and I have. Commissioners will have one. City has representation. We also branched out to include Ossian and Markle, with hopefully the idea down the road is that funding starts to come from these other communities as well, that it's not just on the city of Bluffton and the county. Right now, as you read in the agreement, it's a 50-50 split. But the idea is that with this member board, fire chief, police chief, a lot of people are going to be part of that. But the two parts of the committee that are going to be important, the first one I think is most important, is the fiscal management of the 911 center. It's a pretty big budget, so to have that fiscal oversight and have more of a say on that side will be good. This body, along with the city council of Bluffton, will have final say on budgetary matters and everything else. Policy procedures will also fall under the committee along with this body and also the city. So the only thing that won't, which we removed because we didn't think it belonged on the committee, day-to-day personnel decisions. We figured that needed to stay with the emergency management director, appropriately so. It is, again, the big provisions I always like to read is what's our out if this doesn't work. And you can see the provision there. I think it's a 60-day out period at any point in time if it looks like it's not working, either party. So, yeah, pretty exciting. It's I think the city, there are going to be some other interlocal, I think, agreements coming up with some other things that we're going to be doing with the city coming up. So this was a good starting point. So be happy to answer any questions I possibly can. Colin, obviously, as a county attorney, you were heavily involved in this as well. So I can open it up if anybody has questions, or we could just vote to approve it.
Can I just say too, we were pretty worried about whether or not the city would be able to hire enough dispatchers to man operation in our labor market. And I ran into Mike Miller during Street Fair, and he told me that they had hired 3 new dispatchers. So it's a good time to get this done, and it's been a long time coming, and it's really I think it'll be wonderful for both sides. It's already starting to bear some fruit, I think, as people are joining up, and hopefully we can ensure that 911 works great for not just the city but also the county.
I had one question when I was looking through that. The funding side is still, we have the 911 in our budgetary process, which was the landlines originally, right? And I know those were decreasing, obviously, because people are not using landlines anymore, you know. Is that the monies that are coming, is that going to be appropriate enough to keep? I'm not trying to get.
There will be additional appropriations that will be needed. Lisa and I met with the mayor, and
Because right now,
running, right?
that's been our portion of it's been through our 911
Right.
funding, right? And those days are getting shorter, less and less.
They are, so there will be an economic reality for council.
That's right.
Good news is that working with the commissioners, that through lit and different things, we're going to work on making it up, but there will
So
be.
going forward into
Right.
next year in the budget process.
Cycle, you'll
there'll
start
be
to see some
there'll
costs
be some
involved with
costs
it.
involved, okay.
So we're working through that right now.
Okay.
It was very odd when I first got involved in this, because most counties around Indiana, the county has the 911 system. It ended up in the city of Bluffton initially, for some reason, and a little bit of it out with the county sheriff's department, but you kind of got stretched, right, Sheriff? I don't want to speak for you, but, so we ended up, you were working with the police chief, and they agreed, hey, we would take on all 911. Am I phrasing that right? Because I wasn't part of those conversations.
We've dispatched for ourselves, Osseo and Marco, all the small agencies. We didn't do fire EMS. They took all 911 calls. But when we started this over a year ago, we knew that this was, initially it was on board that this was the agreement we were going to get to. We were in a position where it was harder and harder because of the labor market to keep our dispatchers over there, knowing we were moving in this direction back last October.
Right.
They took over our day-to-day dispatching for us and have been doing that ever since with their current 10 dispatchers. So the agreement is to build it up to 15 because they're picking up the additional work. They've been doing the additional work this entire time. At one point, they were down to 5 dispatchers with that labor market issue.
And Bluffton has taken on a lot of those costs, like the overtime that was done with the Bluffton police officers were going in to fill in dispatch, and the Bluffton Police Department paid for all that out of their overtime and all that out of it. So it will make it a little bit more of a partnership there as well, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But we had 2 high-profile cases in the last 12 months that it was very vital, and it showed that these 911 dispatchers need to be in the same center. That was the first one, was a shooting up in Ossian, and then the fire here at Capri Meadows. Because having them all together talking and helping, instead of maybe some going to the sheriff's department, it really has made a big difference in the short term with 2 major events.
This will truly benefit the citizens of
Yeah.
Wells County to have.
And I think that was the focus in the first place, is
It
a
was.
public safety focus.
Yeah, this will be,
Yeah.
and the nice part is it's always been, and this isn't a control issue, but it's always been under the direction of the city. And now with this agreement, all the stakeholders have a say-so in policy, procedure, funding, and those type of things. So, myself, the fire chief, the police chief, we all have a voting hand in policies, procedures, day-to-day stuff. So it's not just one entity making all the decisions. It's all the stakeholders coming together monthly to review and make those. And don't get me wrong, they have very good policies currently and everything else, but time change and things need changed. And I think all the stakeholders have always kind of just voiced their opinions, being under control of one entity. And so this was a good thing. Obviously, there's a cost involved in it.
Yeah.
But, it's a good thing.
So I would recommend that council approve this, so I just need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, Lisa.
I had an employee give notice, and I have interviews next week, or this week, Thursday, for new employees. But the position she's taking is kind of a flexible position, and she has said that if we need her to
Current employee.
current employee, yes, current employee, if we need her to come in and train or keep up on current job duties, maybe 5 hours a week, she would be more than willing to do that and help us out until the new employee is trained. She's gonna be with me until the 14th. Her current wage is $20 an hour. So I just know temporarily she could help us out. I can pay for it out of my backup maintenance fund, so it won't be using taxpayer money.
So it's only for the next couple of weeks, is that what I'm
She'll
understanding?
be here till the 14th, but yes.
Oh, she'll be here in the full-time
Yes.
capacity?
Yes, until the
Gotcha.
14th.
So you're talking about after that,
Yes.
if you need her?
Tell us quickly what she does, because is she the settlement clerk?
No.
Okay.
She does abstract, she moves like TIF into the system, deeds, splits. So it's nothing you can know before you come to the office.
So essentially, you're asking for the pay to be the same almost hourly rate that she's getting now when she works part-time, but no benefits at that point.
And that's just up until you get somebody hired and trained, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I would say.
Not a platform.
Can you put a cap
Yes.
on that? Like
Like a date?
Well, I would have to,
you think?
I would have to do an additional after the first of the year if it went that far, but hopefully it doesn't.
You're thinking that it wouldn't?
Yes.
My concern, Lisa, and I think I shared this with you, is that just a couple weeks ago, we set a policy, a countywide policy, and put a cap on our temp help part-time rate. And now right out of the chute, we're exceeding that by 33%. It seems like maybe we need, can we amend that policy that we set?
The $15, part-time employees can't be paid more than that without your approval. Just like Blake's part-time person makes 26,
Right, we have a
something.
part-time field officer and Tina's position.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, Deb was saying that for the 7%, Lisa, do I need to come back? We already have it. Okay, we're good. Never mind.
You're good.
I'll shut up.
Okay, so,
good.
And
Anybody,
there's precedent for it being more once approved by this body.
yeah, anybody that makes more than 15 is in the salary ordinance.
Okay.
So if you do allow it, I would have to amend the salary ordinance for this instance until the end of the year.
so we're just saying the latitude is for department heads, they can pay up to 15. And an exception like this, they need to come before council.
Right.
So, yeah, that's.
And we discuss and whether we approve or not.
Right.
That's up for that discussion. Okay.
And if you want me to offer her 15, I can, but I'll still need to put a temporary part-time employee in the salary ordinance because I currently don't have one. Up to you.
Well, it's a matter of you're getting somebody who knows the job to do training
Right, it's been there a while.
versus somebody off the street. who
I don't think
doesn't.
we want to be short-sighted there.
That's
Yeah.
right. There's a lot of important things that go on in those duties.
Guess I'll just entertain a motion to, if we want to approve Lisa's request to pay this person as requested.
Here again, I'll make a motion to approve Lisa's request.
I'll second.
Yes, one additional question.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Is there a
Sure.
cap on hours? I know you guys were talking about it, but I didn't catch it. Are we gonna cap this hours a week, or is it just unlimited, or?
Well, no part-time employee can work more than 28 hours a week, and I can guarantee you she will not work 28 hours a week.
5 hours, she's
Yeah.
basically
Yeah,
thinking to
she's
come
gonna
in
have
to do
another
this,
full-time
in this
job.
training, yeah.
Yeah.
But is it, how about?
We can cap it if you want, if we want to. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're comfortable with that,
Yeah.
you know, cap it at 10 hours a week?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay,
And then will
let's do
this-
that,
is
this was
this
there's collars
indefinite?
around it.
No.
No, till this.
No.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yeah.
When's the termination calendar? When is, do you anticipate using up to 10 hours a week indefinitely?
No, no.
When do you think it will
I'm
stop?
hoping just through the end of the year, if that long.
She's good up to the 14th, she said, right?
Yeah, she's gonna
on-
be here full-time till the 14th. And then.
Why don't we
yes.
cap it to the end of the year, and then if it has to come back up, we'll bring it up.
Yep.
You'll have to bring
Because
it
I'm not
up.
gonna put that in the new salary ordinance. It's just gonna be in this one. I'll bring
Yeah.
that
That's
Yeah,
fine.
10 hours. 10
Yeah.
hours to the end of the year.
At $20 an hour?
Could you amend your?
I'll make the motion I did before, but we'll cap it at the
10
end of
hours
the
a
year.
week through the end of December.
Yep.
We had a second, I believe, from Jim. Are you still good with your second? Okay, seconded as amended. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. Miscellaneous business, I think first thing let's talk about is the meeting dates. And I think there was a suggestion for a potential July, moving that off the 4th of July week. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That would move it to the 11th?
The 11th's our normal Tuesday, is a Tuesday, right?
Yes,
Tuesday.
Yes.
On July 5th, it would be Wednesday. But commissioners moved theirs since July 3rd was a,
We would only be moving one.
right, you'd be moving it to July 11th.
It's fine with me. I don't know.
Anybody have a problem with that? You won't care. Jim won't care. All right, we just need a motion on that one, unless there's other changes that somebody saw or wanted to recommend. I don't see any other ones necessarily.
We'll stay at 7 o'clock then, as we have been.
I think that's good.
Normal
Yep,
time, yeah.
yes,
I'll make that motion
okay. The one change. Okay,
with the one change.
yeah, all right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, good with that. Okay, next subject was the registered surveyor compensation. I think we briefly talked about this last month, and the issue at hand is that should our surveyor, Jared, get his designated surveyor, registered surveyor designation? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Licensed, yes, thank you. Licensed surveyor, whether that would be instantaneous or the next pay date, would get that bump or wait till the next budget cycle year. My recommendation would be that we make that pending the licensed and he shows us or Lisa or all of us that he's actually got that designation, and I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's a certificate of some sort, little plaque, okay. But that's up for discussion, and you guys can have your own opinions, so.
Isn't there state guidance on that, or maybe even an IC?
The amount,
At
one and
the
a half
end-
times
At the
Yeah.
end of the year.
their salary.
It's a matter of when, it's not how much,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The,
In other words, if he done it today, he wouldn't do it till next year.
That is not in the state law.
It's not in the state,
It's just the 1.5 times, I believe, right?
it's one
that part is, and it's just a matter of when that takes
When does it
place.
take effect, yeah.
When does it take effect?
And I've been wrong before, but I could have swore it was mentioned when it would take effect as well. And as long as we can vote against that code, if there is a code, and maybe we should check before we.
Colin? I mean,
Colin can chime in here.
Anything that you're aware of there?
I believe that there's a famous case where a surveyor actually had to sue his own county because they didn't follow their own. It was their own ordinance, but their ordinance tracked essentially what we're talking about here. This discussion started over whether or not an automatic bump, such as has been suggested, upon him receiving his licensure, would that be an alteration in his salary, which is generally prohibited by state law. You can't change elected individual salary. Jared was able to find a code citation on that says that for purposes of determining an increase or decrease in compensation for an elected county officer, the term does not include payments in recognition of professional certification. So that's how it rolled out, and that was my confusion coming in fresh at the last meeting, I believe, when we talked about this. So not that I think anybody's looking at an elected official like he may have an action against the county, but the statute's pretty clear that he's entitled to that pay. Now, I understand that maybe something came from the State Board of Accounts saying that you had some discretion in making it next year or for date of. It's money, and it's important, and we're stewards of that money, but since the county's obviously empowered to make that determination, it's not an adjustment in salary during that year. My suggestion would be to avoid all that question that's out there. Would he be otherwise entitled to that increase in pay and entitled to back pay if he wasn't paid including interest? It's probably the wisest move to go ahead and make it immediately upon his proffer of that certification to the council.
And same, I think, Steve did, I would agree with you that I think that if it's earned, to me, You have the right to be making the money when you earn it and not have to wait how many ever months afterwards.
It'd be similar, isn't it similar to the assessor's office if they go to a 3, from a 2 to a 3?
They get that.
They get that
As soon as they-
automatically,
As
right?
soon as they bring their certification.
Certification to you, so it's the
Actually, they
same.
get back pay for the whole year.
Oh, well, we've never paid them back pay, but.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're supposed to get that dollar
Yeah.
amount for the entire year.
But I'm just saying there is another, okay.
No matter when they get
Yeah,
the
if they get
certification.
December 31st, if they get their level 1, they get the whole.
Is that something in the
$2,500
code?
or whatever it is.
Well, you're on top of that stuff. Is it on the, in the code? Is that,
Yeah.
okay, the Indiana code? Okay. So it's all automatic in there for that, but not in this situation though.
Well. Times being in front of council, it's the position, it's not the person.
Yep.
If I leave tomorrow and the next person comes in as a licensed surveyor, you have a salary ordinance that says if you're licensed, here's the pay.
Yeah,
If you're
exactly.
unlicensed,
Yeah.
here's the pay.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter if it's me and I get licensed in the middle of the year, or if I leave and somebody else took office that was licensed.
You have to
it makes
pay them
no
that.
difference. They're entitled.
It's code, yeah.
So I'm not sure why there's been the question of when to do it. It kind of feels like we're looking at a person, my situation, and it's
I think it's because we already have a salary ordinance, the way it states it, that it's the next cycle, and we're looking to change that ordinance. I don't know
And I
if it's
understand
read in
it's
there.
blindsided that I, some secret that I went to college and got a degree and took 2 national exams and a state-specific exam, and, if I could do that under the cover of darkness and it was a surprise. This has been like 5 years in the making.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of been aware that this is happening, so.
So any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to make one.
So moved.
Make the motion, though.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and make it effective immediately once the licensure has been secured and completed and shown to council that it has been done.
Okay.
Starts effective at that.
Starts
It
immediately.
would be effective, the money would start effective
1.5
immediately.
Yeah.
His salary.
But I mean, to back the first year.
No, it would not be retroactive.
Not like the assessor. That's what I'm saying, that's a total, this
Yeah,
code's
it's
different.
effective immediately once passed.
Okay, we have a motion. Someone want to second the motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, it's settled. Okay, lastly, we have the Peterborough Board pay discussion. I think that was brought up. There was, I think, some misunderstanding that we were moving all board pay to $65 a meeting, and I don't think there was any intent to take our Peterborough, which I believe they're paid $100 per meeting now, and changing that down. If anybody reads that differently than me, speak up. And if that's the case, I don't know that we need a motion to this effect, just a discussion that, does anybody think that we need to take Peterborough down?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right, I don't think anybody's on that page, so I guess my recommendation would be just be leaving it as is. Remember that? All right.
I'll make a motion to that.
Made a motion.
Then we'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any other business from our huge crowd tonight? I didn't mean it that way. All right. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that one.
All right. All in favor, aye.
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 Okay, stick around for signatures.
Seconded. Todd or Vicky?
Todd did. He beat me.